Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 3 of Conversations on Addiction presented by DreamLife Recovery. I am Mary Fran Bontempo with my friend and colleague, Diana Dubbs. We are both moms who have had different perspectives on addiction, and we started these conversations with the intention of sharing those experiences with others. So, Diana, thanks again for coming back into this project with me.
Hi, guys.
So today we wanted to talk about something that is really hard to do for both parents and for those struggling with addiction, and that is the idea of acceptance. Oh my gosh. Like who wants to accept this? Nobody wants to accept it. You're kicking and screaming and fighting. I think, both as a parent, when you see this happening with your child, the last thing in the world you want to do is acknowledge it and accept it. And probably as an addict too, like what's the perspective on that from the addict's standpoint?
So I think that, acceptance is something that we struggle with from day one and probably all throughout recovery. There's so many different facets to acceptance, and it's something that we have to work on the entire time. But just the idea of being a recovering addict or alcoholic is something that is so challenging. And just the term acceptance, I think what most people don't understand is, acceptance is just the simple being of it is what it is, right? You don't have to like it. You don't have to love it. You just have to just acknowledge that it's there and are willing to just live with it, And I think a lot of us go through this world struggling to have an emotion attached to something. You know what I mean? We have to.
I think that maybe, at least in this case, I think the emotion is automatic because it's automatically, no, I hate this, I'm not accepting it. At least I can speak from the parental perspective. But your point is well made. This is not about endorsing it. This is not about saying, yay. This is about saying, this is here. I must acknowledge the truth of this and the reality of this, or you can't move forward in any positive way to address it.
I just think that if we use it as, if a person is diabetic, right, and they have to inject insulin in their body every day, they don't struggle with accepting the fact that they have to curb, the amount of sugar that they take in their body, or curb, the foods that they eat, or even having to give themselves a shot of insulin every day. It just is what it is. That's how they have to live their life. And it's the same thing as being a person in recovery. We don't, it's just a different way of living. And once we can truly acknowledge that, it's just the way that our lives work and the way that our brains work and the way that our bodies interact with different substances, it's just an easier way to move forward.
Yeah. I, again, looking at it from the parental perspective, when you create this life, or you try to build this life for your family and for your children and all that, it comes with certain, for lack of a better word, visuals. Like, this is what life is going to be like, and my kids are going to be this, and this world that we've managed to create is going to, it means that we are this, whatever this particular thing is. It means that we are a well-adjusted, successful family, or whatever. You don't necessarily put it in those terms, but that's kind of the visual. And then when something like this happens that is just so extreme and so challenging, it just derails every bit of that. And it derails that idea that you have, and those hopes and those dreams that you have for the way your children are going to live. But it doesn't mean that they are not going to be able to live wonderfully successful lives. It just means that it's going to be different than the path that you had in mind for them. And in order to continue to help them as a parent, you have to accept where they are. You have to accept that this is an issue for them. It's not something they can just turn off. Like you said, it's a disease. It's part of their nature that if you are going to continue in your role as a parent, you have to accept, like you said, just as you would accept if your child had diabetes or something like that, this is a condition that you have to accept. And I think you made this point the last time we talked, or maybe you and I were talking on the phone this week. You said the first time someone takes a pill or a drink or a whatever, that's the choice. But if you're an addict, that's where the choice ends.
Right. It's a very simple thing for me. So I can tell you, I can nail it right down to the day. I remember sitting in treatment, and I remember fully conceding to the fact that I was a drug addict, and just knowing that I could never do drugs again, that they had destroyed my life. But I was unsure if I could live my life, never having a glass of wine or never drinking a beer again. Like, I just didn't know how that was going to work. And I remember in that moment, I remember exactly where I was, and I just had repeated, okay, like, I can do it for today. I cannot have a drink today. And I remember thinking in my head, like, I can do it for the next 24 hours, and maybe I could do it for 24 hours after that. And like, that worked for me.
Yeah.
And, in that moment, I was able to accept that just for that small, short period of time, that I just couldn't have a drink, and it didn't mean forever. It just meant in that moment, I just couldn't have a drink. And those short periods of time ended up being longer periods of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It just changed everything.
I think that that's exactly the way that it's a great tool that you just gave everybody. And I think that that's one of the tenets or the precepts or whatever of when you go to AA, it's like, for this period of time, I'm not going to take a drink. But I think when we talk about things like acceptance, people feel like that means they have to put their arms around it and give it a great big hug, and pull it in, and okay, this is going to be part of my life from now till forever. That is overwhelming to think of it in those terms. But if you can break it down and think, all right, I have to accept that at this moment, this is my reality, this is my child's reality. What can I do in this moment to make things better for them? Or
Listen,
for me?
my older brother, is like, I wish I could be him sometimes. He can drink and then walk away from it, and then he could go weeks without drinking again. And he's a functional human being. He's very successful. I am just not that person. When I put a drink in my body, I can't stop at one. I continue to drink and continue to drink. And I had to wrap my head around the fact that I am just a different human being than he is. We come from the same family. We're bred by the same parents. We didn't have different childhoods. It's just that I suffer from a different chemical imbalance than he does.
Yeah. And I think that, we accept things as a given in normal life. We accept that, we accept the differences maybe in our personalities between our siblings, and we accept certain things because they're not hard, and they're just natural to us. Like, okay, I get it. He's a different person. I don't react the same way my sibling does or whatever. But when you're talking about something that can be so emotionally devastating, it adds additional weight to the thing, to the idea of acceptance. However, if we can put it in the light of something that, number one, this is just a given. This is like a diabetes. This is a whatever. Number one, this is a given. Number two, you don't have to love it. You don't have to embrace it. And you don't have to think about what it means for you for the rest of your life. Think about what it means for you today. And then suddenly the idea of, first of all, acceptance becomes a little easier. And then second of all, okay, now how can I move forward? That idea then becomes a little bit easier. So it's really important to separate the two.
You know what I think is funny, and I'm giggling a little bit as we're talking, because traditionally alcoholics and drug addicts make everything so difficult. We overcomplicate everything because that's just who we are. We can't simplify anything. And I think our loved ones oftentimes try to find the hardest way around the simplest answer that's out there because they just don't want to see what's in front of them sometimes, you know? And
Totally.
and it could be, you know, it could be the biggest blessing or it could be the biggest nightmare. It doesn't matter what it is, but we're just so used to having to uncover things that it takes us a really long time to get to the answer that we're looking for, you know?
Yeah.
Acceptance is, and this is what we were talking about before, it's just super easy, you know. Acceptance is just accepting that it is what it is, you know. If
Right.
it's raining outside, just acknowledging, you know what, it's raining out, and then just moving about your day and keep doing exactly what you would have done whether it was raining or whether it was sunny out. What's not acceptance is sitting and living in the fact that it's raining outside and that all the things that you can't do because now it's raining outside, you have now stalled your entire day because it's raining outside.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny, but as we're thinking about this, the other thing we're talking about this, the other thing that I found to be, and it just kind of hit me in this conversation, with the idea of acceptance, once you accept it, you have to own it as a truth. You have to recognize it as a truth, because it's very easy when you're a parent, if an addict has not come to the idea of accepting whatever is happening or looking for to get better or anything like that, you can easily be manipulated into not accepting that truth again. So you really have to make a commitment to it. You have to commit to accepting the reality and not be swayed by the fact that this other person, the addict, is trying to talk you out of that.
Right. And I have to accept the fact that I have one kid who is very challenging and I have another kid who is just really easy to deal with. You know, but those are like the things, you know, those
Well,
are
and
the things.
but you adjust accordingly, and that's, here's the thing. If we take the emotional weight out of this, and of course that's nearly impossible, but if you can look at acceptance in terms of exactly as simply as you said, okay, it's raining outside today. So do I like it? No. Do I have to change my plans? Yes. Does that mean that the day is a total loss? No. It doesn't mean that it's a total loss. It just means it's going to be different. So acceptance doesn't necessarily have to mean that everything from here on out is going to be awful if you accept this one fact. In fact, if you accept it, then you open yourself up to receiving the tools and the help and the everything else that you need to address the addiction as what it is. And that's what we're talking about here.
Listen, I mean, you know, you mentioned something really funny to me at the beginning about how, you know, parents have this vision of what their kids are going to be when they get older and this, you know, and it doesn't stop them from being those things. I mean, you know, where I cannot describe to you, you know, my life right now. I'm filming a Zoom call with you talking about all these things on addiction, but I'm still able to maneuver and live with my kids and do all these things with them that, you know, when I came out of treatment, I had no idea that I was going to end up being a mother, that I was going to end up being married. Like, I did not believe that those things were in the cards for me before that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Had I not experienced the things that I experienced in my life, I do not believe that I would be where I am today, which is being a mom, being a wife, you know, being employable, being a friend, all of those things that I'm able to manage right now.
Mm-hmm.
Do I struggle with the fact that, you know, I am still an addict and an alcoholic and I'm 7 years removed? Absolutely. There are days that that's a hard pill for me to swallow sometimes, you know? Is it easier today than it was 7 years ago? Absolutely true as well. You know, does it still hurt my mom and does she still struggle with acceptance? Probably, you know, but I don't think she has a choice, you know? And I think that that's the difference today, is that if it means me being happy and being alive, she'll give up the choice of whether or not she accepts it or not any day of the week.
Right. And that I think is the key. And I think that's where we can leave people with this conversation. You know, acceptance, again, it doesn't mean embracing. It means acknowledging the truth for what it is so that you're then free to seek help, to live within the confines. I don't even want to use the word confines, but to live within, to play the hand that you're dealt. To, you know, it's just like somebody who wants to be a basketball player but is only 5'2". Okay, that's probably not going to be your thing, you know, but that doesn't preclude you from doing other things that are amazing. But it has to start with that acceptance of the truth, both on the part of the addict, because they can't get better without acknowledging that, and on the part of the parent, because you have to understand that, no, this isn't a wonderful thing. This is not welcome news, but it is the truth, and it's the only way that you as a family are going to be able to move forward and you know, develop a wonderful life. You're proof of that. That wonderful life can exist, and my son's proof of that. But it all has to start with acceptance. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So thank you everyone for tuning in. I hope we leave you with at least a nugget every time. I think this is therapeutic for both Diana and myself because it does even help us to clarify, even though we're both years into this journey. You know, you still ask yourself those questions, and you're always thinking about this. So I hope that in these conversations on addiction, we leave you with something that you can take on your personal journey. And again, feel free to reach out to either Diana or myself. Diana, where can they find you?
You can find me at you can find me on LinkedIn at follow me at Diana Dubs. You can find me on social media at Facebook. You can email me at diana.dubs@dreamliferecovery.com, and there you can also get my personal contact information.
There you go. And I am also all over social media and LinkedIn under Mary Fran Bontempo. So feel free to reach out to us. Thank you again for joining us on this latest edition of Conversations on Addiction, and we will see you next time. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.